Hello, and thank you for checking into our ACA-NY and Life Plan virtual learning session for July 14th, 2026. In this session, you will learn about the Technology-Related Assistance for Individuals with Disabilities Program, or TRAID. In this session, TRAID Director Melinda Dolezal shares how New York State's Assistive Technology Program helps people with intellectual and developmental disabilities live more independently, stay connected, participate in their communities, and achieve their personal goals. As you watch, you will learn what assistive technology is, who can access TRAID services, and how New Yorkers can borrow and try devices before making a purchase. You'll hear real-life examples of how the right technology can make everyday activities more accessible and empower people to live, work, learn, and engage in the ways that matter most to them. This session is designed for individuals and families, caregivers, care managers, providers, educators, and direct support professionals. We hope you find this presentation helpful and informative. Please welcome Melissa Dolezal, Director of TRAID.
Thank you all for being here. I actually, before I started with the Justice Center, I was a service coordinator. So I had a caseload for 3 years of various people from age 7 up to age 77. So it was a great experience, and I do miss the people on my caseload, but I'm lucky that I ended up where I am within the Justice Center. So like Kate said, I'm going to talk to you guys about the TRAID program at the New York State Justice Center. And it's actually great that some of you are from out of state, because one of the things people don't always realize about TRAID is it is one of 56 programs within the country that people can utilize for assistive technology needs. So we'll be going over New York primarily, but just know that there are 55 others, whether you're in Florida, Massachusetts, Maryland, wherever you happen to be. So we're going to kind of go over some basic information on not just the TRAID program, but also the Justice Center, which is where the TRAID program is housed within New York. It's an agency that's different from any other in the country. So we like sharing some information about what it does and how it can assist, and how the heck TRAID ended up at the JC. So that's me. It's a bit of an old picture, but I am Melinda Dolezal, and it's Dolezal like Dole pineapples, plus that's Zol folks. That's what I usually tell people, because it is very Czech, the Czech Republic, and it means lazy, which I assure you, I do everything to not have that be how I live my professional life. Out of work, who knows? But I am a Caucasian female wearing dark glasses, and I have long dark hair, and I'm wearing a dress with lemons on it today. So again, I'm just going to jump right in. If you do have questions and you'd like to get them off your chest, feel free to put them in the chat. I will definitely get to them at the end of the presentation. It's hard for me to see the chat when I am presenting. If I go a little too fast and you want me to slow down, please feel free to make that known somehow. That, you know, a New Yorker, sometimes we get a little ahead of ourselves. So we want to make sure that the information is making sense.
Right. And so, I also have my eye on the chat too, Melinda. So
fantastic.
I'll be helping you out here.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Kate. So the Justice Center, for those of you that don't know, is an independent investigatory agency that was created in 2013 to better protect populations receiving state care, often who are vulnerable to abuse and neglect. So a lot of times it's facilities like group homes, day habilitation, site-based day habilitations. There were concerns over consistency in the ways to identify acts that were being committed. After a series of reports in the New York Times, the Justice Center was ultimately opened in June 2013 after legislation was introduced, and it has been active ever since. TRAID is actually much older than the Justice Center. TRAID formed in 1990. So again, not many people know that, and part of that is, you know, there's a lot of information out there and a lot of resources, but sometimes things come and go. TRAID has been around, and as far as I know, will continue to be around for the foreseeable future. So within the Justice Center has 3 strategic goals. The first is to expand innovative approaches. Maintaining the safety of others is the core principle of the Justice Center's work. A lot of ideas have been gathered during the planning process, focused on ways that could build in existing investigative processes. Sometimes I talk too fast and trip over my words, so I apologize. So achieving this goal helps the Justice Center and fellow state agencies better measure and articulate the impact of combined preventative measures. Goal 2 is to create new ways to share and learn. The Justice Center is the only agency of its kind in the United States that has the broad, the goal of investigating allegations of abuse and neglect with such broad protections for people at higher risk. And then finally, the third goal is to strengthen processes to improve user experience and adapt to change. What this really means is the Justice Center is working hard to look for feedback from internal staff surveys, provider visits, so providers within New York State, and those that we have jurisdiction over within the Justice Center. And to achieve this goal, again, it includes working with fellow state agencies closely and better measuring and articulating the impact. So I know that's a lot of potentially big words that maybe you might be saying, I'm not sure what that means. At the end of the day, the Justice Center works to protect people within these 6 state agencies. And that's just the nature of the jurisdiction that the agency has. So we work with, I know we talked about PWDD, the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities. We also work with OASIS, the Office of Addiction Supports or Services and Supports, the Office of Mental Health, the Department of Health, the Office of Children and Family Services, and the New York State Education Department. Jurisdiction includes over 1 million people receiving services across these 6 state agencies, and it includes programs operated, licensed, and certified within these 6 state agencies. So it's typically, like I said, group homes, day habilitation programs, and other facilities overseen that are state operated that have the identified jurisdiction. So again, you may be asking yourself, Melinda, what does this have to do with assistive technology? And that's a very valid question, and I understand. So the Justice Center's work encompasses many activities, and part of that is advocacy. Prevention, protection, and advocacy are our 3 guiding principles, and within TRAID, advocacy is very, very strong. We work hard to find unique ways for people to live, work, and have fun and independence within TRAID, and it also doubles up with what the Justice Center as a whole is working to do in protecting people within specific jurisdiction. And so TRAID, I'm a history major, I'm a history nerd. So prior to the Justice Center's formation in 2013, TRAID was part of the Commission for the Quality of Care, which predated the Justice Center. Justice Center was formed, TRAID came along for the ride, and it's been here ever since. We work very closely with many different departments here and outside of the Justice Center. We love our partners within all of those oversight agencies. We also work closely with many school districts, with many independent living centers, and with many organizations within the community that are trying to work hard to provide supports for people to, just like that said, live, work, go to school, have fun, do anything in the community that anyone else would want to do. Oh. What is TRAID? It's an acronym, and we do know if you call us and you say triad, we know what you mean. TRAID is the New York State Designated Assistive Technology Program. So the program meets all, oh, I see somebody drawing a little bit, so I'm not sure. I'm an art kid too, history nerd art kid. So if you could just hold off on doing any type of typing on the actual screen. I do like the green with the purple though. But anyway, so TRAID, there are regional TRAID centers across New York State. Every county is covered. They provide a number of services that we're going to touch on later on in the presentation. And it fosters independence and community inclusion, regardless of a person's age, their needs, their strengths, and anything else that might come into play when it comes to an assistive technology device. So our goal is to promote greater independence in the lives of people with disabilities, again, all ages, by using assistive technology. And this could be anything from education, employment, and community living. So more or less every part of a person's day-to-day life. The program serves individuals regardless of where they are. A diagnosis, for us, a diagnosis isn't necessarily important as long as the piece of equipment that somebody is borrowing is appropriate for whatever the needs are that they're interested in. So I know it's difficult when we're all on a screen, but this is, if some of you have visited a TRAID center, if you could write in the chat, just put yes or no. just because I'm curious and I'm a nosy Nelly.
And Melinda, if you want to right now, if you want to unshare and then reshare, let's see if the green lines go away.
Oh,
No, lots of no's.
all right. Lots of no's. Not uncommon. A lot of
Right. I
people.
was gonna say, I have to be honest, I didn't know much about the program either before meeting you, so very, very glad to have
Yep,
you.
most of the time it's a room full of no's, and it's kind of what I was. Evelyn, so we're wondering if anyone has been to a trade center or been to an AT program in your state. So if you're not in New York, no, 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 that's good. This is fun for me because we get to introduce you to Not Yet. I like Not Yet because oh yes, years ago, love it, perfect. Melida, you are one letter off from my name, so I'm a fan of you. Consider doing it. Yep. So the thing is if you want to visit, you are more than welcome to visit. Trade centers are happy to do tours of their sites to show people what they have. Zachary, you've been in Onondaga? That's great. Very cool. So that gives me a sense of like what people know and what they don't know. So we do kind of get this reputation of being, I will say, the free iPad people, and we will go over what that means. And yep, we're going to get right to that and exactly kind of where these sites are and what you might see at a trade center. So you could drop in, but it's best to make an appointment because sometimes the staff are out doing deliveries of different types of equipment. So we want to make sure that they're there. There will be usually somebody like an assistant that's there covering for them. But if you want to learn the most about the program, like having one of the actual staff there is your best bet. Oh, I'm going to share my screen again.
And I will mention to everyone that's joined us is we will be sending a follow-up email with the slides, all the information and resources that is being shared today. So if you don't catch it right now, you will have access to it later, and this is being recorded. So you'll get all of the things.
Absolutely. So because most of you have never been to a trade center, this is what you might see. So the picture on the left is actually from the Binghamton Trade Center, which is at the Southern Tier Independent Center, also known as STIC. So again, there are 12 regional trade centers. These are two of them. The one on the left, again, is STIC. That is their durable medical equipment part of their inventory. So in that picture are many different wheelchairs, rollators. I believe there's some knee scooters in there, some canes, different types of canes, a stander in the background. And then on the other side is from the Southern Adirondack Independent Living Center, also known as SAIL. So anybody in the Capital District, a Schenectady person I saw, this might be what you might see there. So they have an EI geared room. So if somebody is working with a child, they can bring their child to this, to the site, and they can, use this room to try different toys, see what might work for them for sensory needs or mobility. So each trade center is slightly different in how they look, but they all do essentially the same things. So if you visit, you might see something similar to these pictures. You might see something very unique to that particular region. So just some background and funding and how TRAID exists. We are actually a federal program. As I said, there's 56 AT programs in the country. We're very lucky to work with three funding partners within New York to have extra devices for people to utilize. The first is early intervention. These are devices for the little guys. So very small pediatric equipment for things like working on walking, communicating, independent feeding, posture, things like that. We also work with Access VR to have additional equipment for employment or education. So if anybody is working with pre-employment transition services or VR in general, we are able to provide devices for people to borrow if they're working with a counselor and have that identified need. And then finally, money follows the person. Unfortunately, is not money literally following you out the door. It is a program through the Department of Health that provides funding for additional equipment to help people get out of nursing homes, to get out of settings where they're not living as independently as they could be. So we work with these four sources to have more equipment available within those 12 regional trade centers. So as I've kind of hinted, who can utilize TRAID? Anyone, regardless of Their involvement in a waiver, we get questions a lot about whether someone needs to be in the home and community-based services waiver. They do not. They do not need to have Medicaid. They do not need to have insurance. They do not need to have met an income threshold. You don't even technically need to be a New Yorker. We've had situations where people have been in New York on vacation. We had a lady that visited who had a medical event, and she had to recover in the Southern Tier, and she was from Florida. And she ended up being here for several months, and TRAID was able to help her get out of where she was so that she could recover in a less restrictive setting. And once she was healthy enough, she went back home. New York is, as long as someone is within the borders of New York, that is really the biggest thing. We've had people that were on vacation that needed Hoyer lifts to get in and out of beds. So the TRAID Center in that region in New York City was able to bring a Hoyer lift to the hotel so that that person had access to it, because something like that is not going to get on a plane very easily. And even if it did, it would be very difficult. So there's a lot of scenarios in which the program is utilized. And for us, disability could be quote unquote short term. So if somebody has surgery and they're recovering from maybe hip replacements or back surgery and they need something to get around, take a shower, use the bathroom. And, eventually the goal would be that you wouldn't need it anymore. Or it could be someone that has a disability that might be more, either lifelong or something that is going to, that the person might need assistance with. So maybe a communication device, trying it out for the first time if somebody is non-speaking, something like that. So what exactly is assistive technology? I might be kind of bouncing around here about, we're saying it, we're throwing around the words a lot, but it's good for us to clarify what exactly we're talking about, because AT, which that's our big acronym. I know a lot of us are from, OPWDD, where you're doing an ISP, or you're going to EAP or TGIF or whatever. So AT is our big acronym. So it's any item, product, or piece of equipment that can be used to increase, maintain, or improve the skills they're working on, essentially, their independence, their, being able to have a meaningful job or go to school for something that they want to go to school for. Devices can be low, medium, or high tech. They don't have to be something with a ton of computer chips in them or a lot of different components. It could be as low tech as a large print playing card, or something that's 3D printed. So the devices available through TRAID they run the gambit in terms of how quote unquote high tech they are. And they can be designed to be used specifically for one purpose or for multiple purposes within home, school, and work. So within the AT world, we have 10 categories. And so this is just to give you guys a sense of what's out there. The biggest things that TRAID has available in terms of popularity are things for mobility, seating, and positioning. So a lot of wheelchairs, walkers, you name it. Daily living could be things for eating, bathing, getting dressed, making a meal. Vision and hearing, magnifiers, pocket talkers, speech. A lot of the programs have software available or low-tech communication devices, like something like a GoTalk. Vehicle mods and transportation. Some trade centers have things like swivel seats to help people get in and out of the vehicle that might, if they have difficulty with turning or with core strength. Recreation, sports, and leisure. We actually have a good amount of equipment that people could use to play games, whether it is a sport. Sometimes the trade centers will have strollers available. They're pretty popular, but they do have strollers for people of different heights, different sizes. Learning, cognition, and development, different types of tools to go to school, timers, different software that can be used on tablets, and computers and related things like mice, keyboards, different things like that. Environmental mods, sometimes they have alarms that people could put on their door in case a door is left open. Not as big of a category for us, but again, just to give you a sense of the types of devices that are out there. And I always tell people, most of us are using assistive technology and don't even realize it. So if you're using Alexa or Siri for certain tasks, if you're turning your lights on and off, by telling it to do so, congratulations, you're using a form of assistive technology. And so just to give you a sense of, again, some of the things that are available both at TRAID and in the larger culture of where we are. So the top left device is an assist to get out of bed. TRAID does not have hospital beds because we have limited space on what we have available, and we always worry about cleanliness and making sure that things are safe to go and loan out. Each TRAID center has their own cleaning policies. Most of them have what's called a hub scrub, which is basically a giant industrial dishwasher for durable medical equipment. So we pop it in there, as long as it doesn't have a computer chip, and it is cleaned and sanitized pretty quickly and very efficiently. But we do have bed assist, so something like this can help someone get up and out of bed. It's portable and easy to take in and out. The top shoe is a Skechers slip-in, which we don't have shoes for loan, but some of the TRAID centers do have clothing. So right now, the Southern Adirondack Independent Living Center actually has an inventory of clothing that people can go and try on. Can't borrow, but can try on, that have different fasteners. They have different components that can be more sensory friendly for individuals that prefer that, wheelchair friendly. So that's an option for people to go and check out. But Skechers slip-ons, that's technology from Kiziks, which are a sneaker company designed to slip on rather than have to bend down to put pressure on your back if that's difficult, without using a shoehorn. So pretty neat. Medication device in the middle up there for people that need meds popped or but also secured in case someone forgets to take their meds or accidentally refills them and forgets they refilled them. So just an extra, way of making sure that somebody is safe taking their meds. Shower chair, and then bottom right is a magnifier. Middle is an adaptive golf club. So there are golf clubs and golf tee. I'm not a golfer, golf tee setters to be able to golf if you use a wheelchair or a mobility device. And then finally, on the bottom left is a strong arm, which is a device that somebody could use to go fishing if they have carpal tunnel or arthritis or difficulty grasping the fishing rod. So again, just some examples. It's a whole world out there of what is available. And the next picture is going to kind of show what I mean with a whole world out there. So these are all mice. They all have basically the same function, but if you notice, they look very, very different. And there's a reason for that. Sometimes people have different needs based on where their strengths are. So somebody might use that mouse top left, fairly traditional mouse with a roller ball, and it might work great, but the one next to it is a pen mouse. So somebody might do better with having that option to utilize for their computer. The bottom is a foot mouse. So these colorful buttons that you see both there and at the one on the top, those are used to give someone an option to have a left or right click or an enter button if maybe they don't use their hands to have access to their computer. Same thing with the bottom middle is a chin mouse. So that would be used by someone who might only have use or be able to move their head to still give them access to a computer just in a way that works for them. Also, there is a vertical mouse for someone with carpal tunnel to have better ergonomic control. And again, another example of a switch mouse. So we include this slide just to show that there's a million things out there that people can use. And we get asked a lot, well, do I need to know about all this? And the answer is no. It's almost impossible to know every option that's out there. And that's what TRAID can do to assist, is to help wade through all of the options and find the one that's going to work best for somebody who may never have needed to use equipment before, or is trying something out for the first time and wants to see what exactly, what are their options. Just like everyone, I should be and hopefully is doing, we operate as a person-centered resource to give people an informed choice on the options that are available to them as much as possible. So TRAID services. We have the equipment. We've just showed you kind of some examples, the types that are out there. Again, vision, hearing, daily living, mobility, computers, recreation, all of that, all of those types of devices go into our 12 TRAID inventories. So each TRAID center, again, there are 12, they operate a lot like a library for assistive technology. Instead of books or magazines, we have wheelchairs and walkers and magnifiers, things like that. They all have their own policies, procedures, and ways that they operate within guidelines provided by the Assistive Technology Act and the funding partners that we work with. Each trade center does the same services. So whether you're in Buffalo or whether you're in Manhattan or Onondaga or Otsego or Owego or Otsego or Oswego, it will be the same. They might just look a little different. And within those organizations, those 12 organizations, you will find the 12 regional trade centers. So this map, it's a little difficult to tell the border between the leather stocking region and the southern tier. But within the trade program, we work with 5 independent living centers, and an independent living center is one-stop shopping for tons of great resources related to benefits advisement, waiver enrollment, community resources for employment, you name it. And so those 5 are located, I saw someone from Nassau County, that would be the Suffolk Independent Living Center. They've recently changed their name to Self-Initiated Living Options, so SILO. TechWorks down in New York City at Adapt Community Network on Lawrence Avenue in Brooklyn, but they do cover the 5 boroughs. I saw some people from, I think, Dutchess, Westchester. You would be at WIT, the Westchester Institute for Human Development. They cover Dutchess, Putnam, and Westchester. I think there was some people from Ulster or Orange, I think. You guys have currently wraparound services of the Hudson Valley, middle of Capital District, again, Sale. We also work with 2 SUNY schools. They are SUNY Plattsburgh up in the North Country and SUNY Buffalo out in the Western region. The rest of them are either independent living centers or not-for-profits or not-for-profits and independent living centers. So each one of these stars is where there is a trade center. Now, if somebody is not able to get to that trade center for whatever reason, most of them are able to provide relatively quick transport, but it might take some time to coordinate because a lot of the trade centers are serving these large areas to make sure that as many people are served as possible. So if you were to reach out, it might take them a day or 2 to get back to you. Just be patient. They are very, very good at what they do. But I do have contact in the end of this presentation should you have questions about specific regions. So here are the services that the trade program offers. I would say that we're most known for the device loans that the program offers, and this is loans like a library book, not loans, cash loans, unfortunately. So the loans are for about 60 days or sometimes less, sometimes more. It depends on the purpose of the loan and why people are trying out the device. Maybe they're trying it out for the first time to see how it works and then make sure it will work or won't work. Or maybe they are waiting for funding. It just depends. So everyone is a different story for the trade program in terms of loan period and loan policies for, just making sure that somebody's using it safely. But again, 60 days is kind of our benchmark. Device compare and contrast. We had this slide with all of the different mice in it. And that's because we would want someone to have as many options as possible that aren't hopefully overwhelming. So usually we would, the trade staff would have 2 to 4 different devices that somebody could check out. They could wheel around, touch it, ask questions about it, and then potentially borrow that device at home, at school, and at work. So when I go back to, people sometimes being nervous, going to a trade center, like maybe they've never needed AT and they don't know where to start, that is pretty common. And that is honestly a pretty good scenario for the trade staff because they can then talk to the person about, walking them through their day, like walk us through getting out of bed in the morning. Is there difficulty swinging your legs over the bed or getting dressed or, difficulty with you name it. Based on that information, the trade staff can then see what they have available in their inventory and what might best meet the needs of the person based on that information. 3D printing, many of the trade centers have 3D printers in their offices and they use what's called PLA or polylactic acid. It sounds scary, it's not. If you've ever seen a 3D printer, it's kind of that spaghetti that you see that gets melted down and made into smaller devices. The trade centers that do 3D print, they create things like key guards for iPads, they create zipper pulls, button hooks, bag holders, faucet extenders if somebody needs that, if they're not able to reach easily. So it's an option that people can have these things created and then they're able to be donated to the person interested in them. The additional services that the trade program offers are trainings. So sometimes people will have questions about funding, ways to pay for assistive technology, knowing your rights when it comes to assistive technology, when it comes to an individualized education plan or an IEP for a child or a teenager. accessibility, ICT, you name it, the TRAID program is able to many times, not always, but many times, create a training that somebody or a group of people can participate in to just learn what's out there and see how it might dovetail in with either what you're doing or goals that somebody has. They're available for staff, for professionals, for advocates, for a whole mix, you name it. Tabling events. If any of you were at the Capitol last week for Disability Pride for the ADA event, we were there. We had a bunch of examples of technology. We said hi to so many people, and it was wonderful to see so many self-advocates. So many of the TRAID centers and myself, we do tabling events. If anybody was at Get Outdoors and Get Together Day, we do that every year. We were in Five Rivers in Albany and Saratoga, I believe in Binghamton, Long Island. So we try to work with Parks Department, New York State, DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, to just have fun stuff for people to do that involve assistive technology. And then technical assistance. So many times people will visit TRAID and point out things that could be more accessible. Maybe it's a building, maybe it's a policy, maybe it's a website. And that's something that the staff might be able to work with you to kind of explore options to make different components, whether it's, again, a physical location or policies or procedures, more inclusive for people within the community. Some examples of things that the TRAID program has done in the past includes making a hiking trail more accessible up in the Adirondacks, assisting with making a curriculum more accessible down in New York City. There are some that have done trainings for staff within group homes to better be able to speak using sign language and communicate more effectively with the residents in that group home. So if you have an idea or something that you're curious about, we're always happy to talk and see if there's anything we might be able to do to collaborate. So I know I threw a lot of information at you. If some of you are still kind of spinning, I understand, but I like to close with a success story because we hear hundreds of them every year. So I'm going to jump to that and then I'll hop back to the other slide. So we had a gentleman that visited the Buffalo Trade Center with his wife. He had Parkinson's and he was embarrassed to go out to restaurants with her. He didn't want to draw attention to himself because if he spilled anything, he didn't want people to make fun of him. So he really liked going out. This was something he enjoyed doing, and it was an activity that he could do with his wife. And so they visited the Buffalo Trade Center. That's where they lived. And they suggested trying a liftware spoon. For those of you that don't know what a liftware is, it is a device that self-balances if somebody has tremors. So if you were to, to kind of use, do a demonstration of one, it has a gyro in it that will make it less likely for food to spill. And so he tried it out, he loved it, and he turned to his wife and said, "We're going out for dinner." So it's not always about massive devices doing massive things. It really, TRAID works best when it's in collaboration with other services to help work on goals that somebody might have. And again, why TRAID? It's a great short-term accommodation. Anybody that knows Medicaid, you know that sometimes there can be waiting for a wheelchair to be replaced every 5 years, if I understand it correctly, or if it is, something that, it's going to take a while for somebody to make a repair to it. Short-term accommodation, the example of the person with the Hoyer lift in New York City that needed it for the weekend, not necessarily for long-term. We've had people come to New York that are going to a wedding and they needed a rollator, and to carry one on the plane or wherever was difficult. So borrowing one from TRAID for 3 days, bringing it back, good to go. Try it before you buy it. There's a lot of things out there and there's new technology coming out all the time. So how are you supposed to know what works best for you? And it's not always easy or clear. So a great thing is people can take things home, try it, and say, this is not working for me. Something's not clicking. I want something more high tech. I want something more low tech. And that is not only a good thing, but also it's going to pay off in the end, because then the person is going to ideally get what is the best option. Justification for insurance, as I'm sure all of us have dealt with at some point in our lives, sometimes things drag on, or there's questions, or there's why this or why that. Any little extra bit of documentation, far as I've ever seen, usually helps. And TRAID services are free. There is no charge for a loan, a demonstration, a training. So, people are able to come and, utilize and have access to the devices they need. Some TRAID devices do have more additional documentation that's required if it's a specialized device that is only used by individuals. I'm thinking like something like an eye gaze. So if you aren't familiar, an eye gaze is a type of device, I guess, for lack of a better word, that people can use in order to type using their pupils. Maybe they are quadriplegic, or maybe it's just for whatever reason it's best for them. TRAID centers might say, we need some additional documentation to know that this is, why the person might use it. For most devices, though, it's a fairly easy process. I'm going to skip ahead. As I said many times, AT is part of a larger system of supports. But a small device can make a huge difference. As we said, the liftware spoon, or we've had people that have tried weighted eating utensils, or just like a shoehorn, or a hip kit to help with recovery after surgery. It's not always, again, a massive device that's going to, take up your entire house. Collaborating with a physical therapist, occupational therapist, or speech language pathologist is only going to help, especially with making sure that the person is utilizing the device correctly, especially if you know anything about speech language pathology. There's a lot that goes into using a communication device. It's not just you grab it and go and hope for the best. So many times a TRAID staff will say, well, are you working with an OT or a PT or an SLP? And if not, it's the best case scenario is to work with one. And again, some devices can be covered by Medicaid, private insurance, or low interest AT loans. We do get those questions about, okay, I've got it now, how do I keep it? So as I mentioned, those of you that are not from New York, or you're in, like I said, Maryland, Massachusetts, Florida, there are AT programs there that can that do exactly what TRAID does. They're just in a different state. So in Florida, your program is called FAST, FAAST. I can't remember what it stands for. It's like TRAID, it's an acronym. Massachusetts, I believe it is operated out of the State Vocational Rehabilitation Agency, and I'm not 100% sure about Maryland, but any information about other states can be found at the AT3 Center. And you can find, and again, if you have friends or family that are in Texas, Montana, Nebraska, Hawaii, Guam, there is an AT program there. We have different names, and they don't all have staff named Melinda, but we all offer device loans and services related to assistive technology. And just as a quick note, this is the slide that I always kind of am sad to go over, because sometimes it sounds like a lot of negatives, but this is just to help people know what we can do and what we can't do. So TRAID does not provide evaluations. Evaluations are more clinical, tests of how devices are going. So if anybody is applying for assistive technology through the waiver, the home and community-based services waiver, you're going to need, I believe, an evaluation. The TRAID centers can point you in the right direction. Some of them may even have some available that they do separately from TRAID operations, but just, we always tell people that. People cannot purchase the devices in the inventory. What can happen sometimes is a person can visit the TRAID center and say, hey, I would like to try out this device. Do you have it? And if the TRAID staff does not have it, and there is demand for it from several people, or it's a unique item that could be beneficial, they could choose to add it to their inventory for loan. But also, the feedback that we get from community members, from staff, from therapists, from teachers, that helps inform what devices are added to the inventories. TRAID is not able to provide financial assistance. We don't provide, people see loans and they think cash. We are able to refer people to some resources within New York State, but we are not able to provide financial assistance. Large installation and large setup. We've had people that made it to houses that were on the third floor and were asked to bring down a large lift. For the capacity of the staff, the staff are able to give kind of brief overviews and setup of different equipment. But in terms of, bringing stuff up multiple floors, it's just not something that we can necessarily do. And we are not able to provide e-mods. I know e-mods can be difficult sometimes. We might be able to point you in the right direction, but in terms of the actual physical e-mod, it's not something that TRAID is able to provide. So interested in learning more, if you want to view your local TRAID center or learn more from them specifically, you can contact them directly on our website. all 12 are listed there. I will say the list that we provided of the 12 and the map, we are in the process of a contract kind of renewal. So if there are any changes to that list, we'll be updating it in due time. So we don't want to interrupt any services that are throughout New York State. So the best scenario would be calling your local trade center and saying, hey, I want to learn more. I'm interested in something for myself, my child, my parent, somebody on my caseload, whoever. And then they will schedule a time to go over some options to see what's out there. And then you're off and running. It could be, within the office itself, some of the trade staff are able to do kind of virtual consultations. They all are able to do some type of delivery. It just might take some time to coordinate. If you're thinking like North Country, where it's a lot of space, a lot of trees, making sure that, they're able to meet the needs of people in Essex County, Clinton County, St. Lawrence County, Franklin County. I knew there was 4. So general justice center contact, anybody can call at any time, 24 hours a day, if people see or experience or even have heard of something happening. If it's not under justice center jurisdiction, we can point you in the right direction of where it would be. So definitely feel free. This will all be on the slides that are sent out. And then this is my contact information. If you have a more general trade related question, or if there was something I said that was confusing and you want some clarification, I'm always happy to help clarify. So we also have our information line. One quick thing that I forgot to mention is TRAID does take donated equipment. So if you have something you no longer need, or somebody outgrew something, or what have you, as long as it's in decent working condition, it might be something that TRAID could take off your hands, make sure it's in good shape, and then redonate it into the community. So that's something that TRAID does pretty frequently. If somebody temporarily needed a rollator and they don't need it anymore, you could donate it to TRAID. Most of them do a tax form to provide to people, and then that device is given a new home. So just as a heads up for anybody, that if you've got something in your garage and you don't want it there anymore and it falls under those categories, let us know. But thank you so much. I know, like I said, it's lunchtime for many people, so it was great to, I saw a lot of things coming in on the chat, so I'm sorry that I couldn't see them, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I can go through the chat for you. Got some good questions in there. Let's see here. Can you provide a list of locations? So I'm going to be following up in an email with the slides. The locations are right on the website, right? So I will make sure that they're accessible and right there in that email for you. You're also going to get a link to the recording. So I just want to
I'm also in the chat. I'm going to put a link to our website that has all of the trade centers listed. So if people want to check that out. And then I'm also going to put a link to the AT3 site for those of you that are out of state that want to find out where your trade centers are.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Wow, this is a good question. Can you go to one outside of your home county? Or is this or would you work with the trade center within your county or region, and then they would kind of look wherever they would need to? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so it happens pretty frequently. I'm going to pull up the map really quick because sometimes it's better to just show it that way. So what does happen sometimes is one trade center might be out of a piece of equipment that another might have. So we see sometimes, if you are somebody in Dutchess County and maybe, Ulster is closer if you're looking at the map right now. So the Ulster Trade Center might be closer than the one down in Westchester. Absolutely. People are able to contact whatever is closer. And sometimes the trade staff themselves will reach out and say hey, technically I'm the person that I got a call from is in, that's another example, is in Schoharie County. Is it easier, are they on the far end of Schoharie County that maybe it's easier for Stick in Binghamton to get there, or for Southern Adirondack? Many of them have satellite sites as well. So if you are out in the southwestern area, Corning, they work with St. Bonaventure to have devices available. SUNY Plattsburgh works with Clarkson University to have devices available. They also work with a local senior center. The Southern Adirondack Independent Living Center has a satellite site in Wilton and one that recently opened in Albany. So there's a few different options about where you might be able to go. The trade center themselves, so like the main trade center, would be able to say where the easiest pickup drop off point kind of thing is. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. All right, let me scroll back up here. Zachary had a comment about possibly having spinal surgery, and is there equipment that can be accessible after folks have like any sort of medical procedure like that?
Absolutely. We see a lot of people in the winter time in particular that have maybe surgery that they can kind of put off because they want to enjoy the summer and the warmth and the sun. And then once it gets a little colder, they go in maybe like different types of replacements or back surgery or things that, they know in advance, okay, I'm going in on this date. I'm probably going to need such and such a device. So you can either call ahead of time and say, I'd like to see what options are out there that I might be able to reserve or pick up ahead of time. So that way, when you leave, you can utilize those. Or sometimes we get, and by we, I mean the trade centers get calls from transition coordinators at, different hospitals saying, okay, Mr. Smith is ready to leave. He just needs these things. We don't have them available. Do you guys have them available? So then we would work with them to coordinate what might work best.
Thank you.
I did see somebody mention bridges, and I do want to say there are other loan closets within New York State that are not trade. So Bridges is a loan closet. There's one at Chemung Schuyler ARC that looks fantastic. I've never been there myself. So trade is the official AT provider within New York, but just know that there are other options out there. I believe Troy Rensselaer Independent Living Center has a loan closet. They're not affiliated with trade, but they still do great work, and they're definitely worth checking out.
And that would be something that your care manager can absolutely help you with because it would be definitely like regional specific. So,
Mhm.
all right, let's see. Joan asked, can people still get AAC devices via a clinical assessment? So Joan, I think I would have to ask you a few more questions about that because if it sounds like it might be outside of the trade program, um, and I would have to ask a few additional questions. Yes, depending on your situation. Joan, I'm going to put our email address in the mailbox or in the chat, and if you want to email me directly, and if you have a specific question, I can help you with that.
And there are, so I will say, like Westchester Institute for Human Development are some of the best when it comes to AAC. They have some SLPs on staff, and they're very passionate about that. They've done presentations all over the world on that topic. So within the trade staff, some of them kind of specialize in different things. So let's say somebody in St. Lawrence County had a question about something that a staff in Westchester was really well versed in. We can always tap into the knowledge of that particular staff. So I a lot of times will go to Buffalo when I have questions about accessibility, or I'll go to New York City when I have questions about 3D printing. So that's always an option as well. It might not be possible to get a loan from Westchester if you're in St. Lawrence County, but they could work together to kind of figure out like what solutions might work best. Oh, I think you're on mute, Kate. I'm usually the one that does that.
That was a test. No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
Okay, Rosemary asked, does trade help with portable ramps?
Yes and no. So threshold ramps, many trade centers do have them to get in and around inside of a house. Ramps themselves, some trade centers do have exterior ramps. What we bump into sometimes, and by we, again, the trade centers, is making sure that they're in compliance and that they're safe. Because if you have however many front steps you have in the height of the ramp might mean that you need more ramp than is safely available to borrow. So it's not just like having a one ramp that kind of sits on your porch. It might be based on the angle, you might need a rest point and then additional footage after that. So simple ramps, many of the trade centers have. Some of them don't carry ramps just because of that concern that they won't be used safely. So the best way to know would be to contact your local trade center.
Thank you. do centers do education regarding the use of a cell phone and or driving a car with new technology?
Cars, I will say there's tons of great resources out there that may not fall under TRAID, but are available that I'm happy to provide resources on. Driving is one of them that we don't do a lot within the state, but there's a lot of resources that exist that we utilize when it comes to topics like that. So if there's interest or follow up in that, I can try and find some resources to send out. And then in terms of just general education, some of the trade centers do computer classes for seniors. They do overall kind of, instruction for groups on different topics. So if there's a demand, it might be possible to coordinate setting something up. It just depends on how much interest there is. But some definitely do kind of overviews on different things. Back during COVID in the, those dark days, we did a statewide initiative on increasing access and knowledge of telehealth. It's something I think we all definitely take for granted now, but we realized, we could loan out as many iPads and tablets as possible. But if somebody didn't know how to use them, they became a paperweight that just kind of wasn't utilized to its full potential. So we created an initiative to better train staff and people using them and created some paper resources as well. So that's always something that we could do as well.
Who determines if it is an appropriate ramp or not? Does someone come out and evaluate?
That's the tricky part, is it's not, so some staff are able to do that, others are not. It's all down to ADA guidelines, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and other best practices about again, I don't know the exact measurements off the top of my head. It's a certain angle based on how many, like 1 foot, like one, I'm just talking in circles. But yeah, it depends on how many steps are at the residence and how far the person would have to go.
Let me see here. My chat disappeared. There it is.
Yeah, I can definitely, I see a few about driving, so I can send Kate some options that we've used, not specifically, because TRAID doesn't necessarily have a lot of driving related equipment, because a lot of it involves kind of installing it within the vehicle. But there are things out there that, are definitely resources. So very cool. Erin Williams, you're not from Schenectady, are you? If it's the same person, my mind is going to be blown. I've known a great many care coordinators and service coordinators. Oh, okay. I'm assuming you're just as cool. But yeah, excellent. If there are topics that, people are interested in, sometimes the trade staff will do trainings, and then other times there are organizations within New York that will read about that people are doing, information sessions on, that we'll try to share with people that are interested. But if you are interested in learning more or seeing what's available out there, I would encourage you, iPads for visual. Yeah, so TRAID does have a good amount of tablets and iPads for different purposes. So it could be just designated for an alternative augmentative communication device, or AAC. It could be designated for employment related searching. In terms of vision, there's a lot of built-in accessibility tools within iOS, the operating system. So to borrow one or to see what is out there, again, it's I sound like a broken record. Best is to contact your local trade center and see kind of what they have available. There's also the Commission for the Blind. I know I haven't mentioned them. The New York State Commission for the Blind is an agency that provides resources, mostly employment related, for individuals who are blind. They provide assistive technology devices, I believe evaluations and resources. The person just has to meet certain criteria in order to receive services, but the majority of what they do is related to vision.
Great. All right, and that answered Marianne's question, I think, about iPads for visual handicapped individuals. We do have a Spanish-speaking person in the attendance today, so I I did put the information in the chat for you, Wendy. Perfect. I think we got to all of the questions, and it's 1 o'clock on the nose. Look at that. Oh my goodness.
Fantastic.
Well, if anyone I often think of things after.
I
But
always do. It's
questions
just
once
the
I,
way we're 2 in the
ruminate.
morning.
Exactly. So if you have questions after this, connect with your care manager. You have my department, the Member Relations Department, as a resource. I'm going to be following up with an email with the slides. I'm like furiously writing down all of these resources that we're talking about and a link to the recording. So you'll have all of the things. If you want to join us again, we will be putting on another presentation tonight at 6 p.m. So if you
Maybe
didn't
there'll
get
be different questions that will jog.
Yes, exactly. Well, I want to thank you again, Melinda, for taking the time to be with us.